Hi, everybody. Welcome to CCS Reporting Tools webinar. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Today, we will be talking about the different tools that we have provided through CCS. I'm Molly Mansfield. I will be leading the webinar today. So here's our agenda for today. A couple of things before we get started. I am recording this session. I will send out the PowerPoint slides as well as a link for a survey and any follow-up if we have questions today. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm watching chat as well. Or if you want to just unmute and ask a question, that's fine with me as well. So today we're going to talk about the different reporting tools that CCS provides. We will look at web reports, Simply Reports, Orange Boy, and Polaris's client reports and notices. I'm going to go in depth for each of these, but I did want to start out by explaining that anyone in CCS with an L2 login is able to access the web reports. The other reporting tools do require additional login and permission granted, and I'll provide information about each resource and do a quick demo of the resource. And again, any questions you have, please feel free to put them in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about accessing the different tools. So to access the CCS reporting tools, you're going to go to the CCS website and click on Member Tools, and then click on the A to Z list. The different tools are listed alphabetically. You do need to be logged in order to see anything under Member Tools. So make sure that you use the login button and log in, and then you'll be able to see those member tools. To get help with any of our tools, we have a ton of resources and documentation. They're listed under the how-to section under and with reporting. You can access courses and pages to help. And then you also are able to put in a help desk ticket if you have additional questions or need support. The first thing we'll talk about is web reports. So what I'll do is I'll give you a couple slides showing you the tool and talking about some of the functionality, and then I'll take a couple minutes to actually go in and demo each tool. So custom reports created by CCS is what web reports are. They provide information for libraries for different statistic gathering. Again, they're found on the A to Z list on the CCS website. When you click the link, it will open in a new tab, and it's going to prompt you to sign in with your L2 username and password. And so the types of data that's in web reports were created by CCS using Tableau. These reports provide information from the Polaris database that is not retrievable in Simply Reports or other reporting tools, at least not easily. Libraries can put in a help desk ticket if you would like to see a report that we don't have currently. Web reports contain probably the most information that we can retrieve from Polaris. And what's nice is that a lot of this data, the ways that we're getting the data in these different tools, if you're not super great with SQL or Power searches, these reports can be another great way to get that deeper information. So for using web reports, you're going to log in and you're going to change the agency code, and you'll use the 3-letter code that your library uses, which is the same 3-letter code in the front of your username when you're logging in. You can choose a section of the reports that you want to look at, or you can scroll to see which reports you want to access. There's also a key that tells you what different colors of the reports mean, and you can also favorite reports, which is something that I really like. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to web reports and sign in, and we'll look at just a couple pieces of information and how you can use this tool. So now you should be seeing my web reports screen, and you can see right now that I'm linked into CCS. I want to click change, and I'll go ahead and use Palatine. So I'll just use the 3-digit code and then click make the change. And so now you can see at the top of my screen, it says web reports for Palatine Public Library District. I have my favorites and I have different sections that I can use. If I scroll through, I went ahead and favorited, or I already have some favorited that I like to use, or that I have used in the past. And you can see that there's things like annual statistics by item collection, monthly stats by item collection. There's a board report information. There's IPLAR reports and information in here. Ways to clean off your Holt shelf. So you can see there's a lot of different tools. We also have our diversity audit tool, which is a little bit different. So I'll show you that after I run a report. So I think what I'll do is I'll click the daily clean hold shelf. It's going to run, and then you should see that it comes up here in your downloads. And then when I open that up, so now what you should see is this is how the report shows. So it's going to, whatever data we have put into that report on any given day, you can run the report and it's going to tell you any information that goes along with that data. So this is a clean hold shelf report. And it tells you that it covers holds where the hold until date is today. You've got some patron information, pickup library item barcodes all the way across. And obviously this is pulling from Polaris. So you do see, some of our personal patron information in here. So this is something that you would want to save locally and keep, just for internal use. Close that down and I'll go back to my web reports. There's also the diversity audit tool. So this one opens a little bit different. This will actually open into a new screen. And then once this gets going, you'll be able to see that you can search by first available date. You can go by specific collections. You can look for specific languages and additional branches. And you can also use the collection development and subject headings category to help as well. And so then you can see as I start to use this tool, if I wanted to deselect and maybe just look at my fiction section, then once I click fiction, I click apply, there we go. And so now when I clicked, now I'm just looking at fiction. I can also do additional things like narrow it down by, like I said, the date and the pub year and the language. But now what you can see here is this is data that's coming directly out of Polaris. It's giving you some diversity markers. You can see over on one side, there's the different diversity markers, and then across the top, you have information about which items fall within these categories, the amount of circulation. And then if you scroll down, you can also get a nice visual of your different diversity markers. And in here, you always have the ability to download something. And so if you needed to download this, you could also do that as well. The brief overview of the web reports, but you can see when I look at my web reports, if I'm looking for things specific, we've got some sections here, extra special and Palatine other. So if you have a specific report that's just for your library, we can put that also on the dashboard here for you. The extra special are usually the ones where we have created a report that would be useful for everyone. And so we put that report parameter on here for you as well. So again, anything that you're trying to look for in here, I would really suggest starting by looking at some web reports. They can be super helpful. And then again, if you're not able to see anything that you can find useful, then you can always go ahead and put in a help desk ticket and we will go ahead and get that created for you. So I'll pause for just a minute, see if there's any questions about web reports before I go back to my slides. We'll talk about Simply Reports. So Simply Reports produce thousands of different kinds of reports using simple web-based interface that doesn't require a lot of knowledge of Polaris or again, knowledge of like a SQL search. So you define the report criteria, which are the parameters, by selecting the data columns for the report output and applying filters to limit the data. And so once you define those parameters, you can download the report to specific file formats. You can save that report and schedule it to run again. You can create record sets with those reports. And you have lots of different options for output as well. You can run list reports, count reports, summary reports. So there's lots of different options. And when you save a report parameter, the file appears as a saved report on your My Reports tab. And so you can edit the columns and filters for saved count reports as well. So once I log in to Simply Reports with my Polaris username and password, I next am going to see a screen that I'll show you in just a minute. It looks like this bottom screen here with the tabs is how the top of the screen looks. So we'll go there in just a minute and look at it. But for data in Simply Reports, the data is Polaris data. It is up to date to yesterday. So any action happening in Polaris today will not show in Simply Reports, but it is up to date the day before. There's a lot of data, and depending on your permissions, you can access data like historical data, data about patrons, bibs, and funds. Some of the reports, like the historical reports, can cause some slowing down of Polaris because it's pulling through so much data. So not everyone has access or permissions for those reports. And for example, when you're looking at this screen here at the bottom where it says items, there are statistical reports and history reports for all of the different tabs. The statistical reports and the history reports are the ones that can slow down the system. However, if you don't have access to them for whatever reason, we can either grant you access to them or you can put in a help desk ticket and we'll run that for you. A few of the limitations I just wanted to kind of make sure. One that's not on there, but I said already, was that the data is only, it will be updated till yesterday, but you won't be able to pull today's data until the next day. Only staff with permissions have access. And like I said before, some of the reports can really slow down the system. So that's why everyone doesn't have that access level. Once you log into Simply Reports, you can choose a tab at the top of the screen for the type of report that you want. The outputs of the reports can be set to Excel, text, Mark, and Word. And you can also create a record set that will automatically save in Polaris. If you've been in trainings with me before, you've probably heard me say I love record sets because I really, truly do. It's a really great feature with Simply Reports that you can save a record set and you go over to Polaris. It's automatically there for you. And all of the metadata for those items or the bibs or whichever report you ran is right there ready to go. There are many parameters that you can pick to build a report. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and show you guys an item level report. But again, you can create list reports, count reports, summary reports, statistical reports, and history reports across patrons, holds, items, all different information. I will go over to my Simply reports. And like I said, I'm going to create an item level report. So I'll go ahead and log in. I'm logging in with the same username and password that I use in Polaris with the same prefix of CCS that's in front of my username. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you can see at the top, patrons, patron accounts, holds, items, bids, authorities, serials, funds, invoices, orders, my reports, admin, and help. Again, patrons and patron accounts, those are going to pull data directly from the patron record. The first one with patrons is more about what's on their registration page. Patron account is what's going to give you the information about transactions on their pages. And then the difference between these two is that the list report is going to give you a list. So if you wanted to look at a list of patrons that had certain items checked out or certain types of items checked out, or if you wanted to find a list of patrons that all had overdue fees over a certain amount, then you would use a list report so that you'll get the names and the other information about that patron. If you want to use just get some numbers, say my director wants to know how many patrons have, more than $25 worth of fines and fees, I can run a report as a count report and it will return it back with the number of patrons by patron type. So that's the difference between the accounts and the list reports. And again, if I go into items, I can do an item level report. So I'm going to show you how to create this output. It's pretty simple. The report output column is telling you where this information is coming from. So if I'm looking for an item list report and I want item level information, I would do like an item call number. Any information like bib information, pub beer, etc., titles, those are going to come from the mark output. So you'll look for mark and then you'll look for title. And you can see as I'm in here, there's a lot of different information you can stick in your output columns. And then once you start to really build this up, you can also use the arrows to make the columns move around. So the output is the way that you want it to look. You can also move a column over so that that is the first column to sort. And you can see right now I'm doing an Excel file as my output. I can use a text file with a comma delimiter, which is really great. And then for this part, what I want to do is I'll start to narrow this down a little bit. So I'm going to go to, again, Palatine. And what I want to look for is, let's see if we can look for items in the fiction collection that maybe have had more than 15 circulations. Let's just see what we can get. So I'll go ahead and click collection with fiction. You can see as I'm scrolling, there's a ton of other ways I can look for specific loan periods. I can look for things that are in a record status of final provisional delete. But then as I scroll down further, there's different other parameters that you can use. So the date filters are going to give you just that. You choose one of the outputs and then you put in your date range. Same with your relative dates, but this is just based on days prior. And also these are between, then there's the days prior. I see there's call number filters. There's all different types of information. I want to go to my item circ filters. And so maybe I want to look at, the year-to-date circulation. Let's make it greater than or equal to 15. And then when I click submit, it should take 15 seconds, 20 seconds maybe. But what you'll see is, oh, I only got one. Let me go back and do smaller number. Somebody's doing a really good job at weeding and keeping their collection tidy. Okay, so now you can see there's my call number, there's my browse title. I did not put the amount of circulations in here, but I could have chosen that as another output. And here I have some options. I can download this report in the format that it currently is. So it'll download to an Excel file. I can save this report for a later use. And when I do that and I save my parameters, I can also save it automatically to a record set. And then I can also create a record set as well. So you can see I've got some that I use regularly. So I can just put in my record set and click create record. And then that set will automatically appear in Polaris. One thing to note with Simply Reports is that it does not save this for very long. So if you're looking at the screen here and you do not do anything, at some point, usually about 10 or 20 minutes at the latest, it will time out and the report will go away. It will not erase your parameters here. So you can always just come back and submit again. But when you do move away from a report, then it is going to remove your parameters and you'll need to start all over. And like I said, not everybody has all of this information. I have more because I have an admin account. But if you're looking for item history, you can put in, if you have the history reports, you can put in a barcode and a date period. And then it's going to tell you all of the patrons, all of the transactions based on what you choose on that item. Polaris data in Simply Reports, it can only be searched in 3-month periods. So if you wanted to get the item history on an item from the last year, you would do a report for today or yesterday through 3 months ago, and then you could do that a few more times and pull them together. So what happens is it'll show up down here in Excel format, but you can also download it. And then you'll be able to see all of those transactions that happened that you don't see in the Polaris database. So next we have our newest reporting tool. This is Orange Boy Savannah. You can request a login through Orange Boy via the help desk. We don't automatically give logins for this tool. You would have had to have attended a training earlier this year, or you could, like I said, put in a help desk request and we'll get you a login. Orange Boy is set up a little bit different than some of our other tools. Instead of having the ability to scope down to just one library when you come in, everyone has the same view. So I would log in here with the savannah.orangeboyinc.com, which is also listed on our website. And then from there, you would go into the tool. One thing to note is that when you request a login to Orange Boy from the help desk, that request is actually going to go to us. We will set up your account, and then you'll receive an email back from Orange Boy with instructions on how to set your password. It's a little bit different than some of our other tools in that we don't reset your passwords for you. Savannah is Savannah Orange Boy. They're interchangeable. Savannah is the company that owns Orange Boy. Orange Boy is the product, but we do use it pretty interchangeably. They may aggregate patron data, including patron name, address, age, home location, most recent location, sign up date, and activity date, but it does not have access to identify material checkouts by patrons. So reports may include a count of patrons who checked out content from Overdrive, but not identify specific patrons or materials. And there's a lot of good visuals that you can use for reporting your data. And one nice thing about this tool is that we do have the ability to customize at some levels. So we can actually create customized reports for you. So if there's a report when we go in here that you don't see and you would like to see, you can put in a request to the help desk and we will try our best to get that report created. If it's a report that is mostly useful to just you and your library, then the report will be set up individually for you. If it's a report that it would be useful to all of CCS, then that report is going to start showing on the dashboard when you log in. But so you can see here, we're currently able to get data from the following sources. This is with the caveat that your library either collects that data, subscribes to that resource, or provides the data to us. Information from Polaris, Overdrive, Hoopla, Canopy, Mango, Beanstack, Regal, and Cloud Library are all coming through via API or another direct connect method. So that information is updated weekly, and you should be able to see that information as long as your library subscribes to that particular resource. MyPC, Envisionware, EasyPraxy, Open Athens, Cisco, Ipler Data, and SenSource are coming in a little bit different. For MyPC, we do have a direct connection for that, but that does require a little bit of setup on your end before the data comes in. If you have MyPC and you don't see your data in there and you want to see it in there, please put in a help desk ticket and we can take care of that for you. Things like the past IPLAR data, for example, that's data that we have input ourselves. And there's some other data points in here as well that you can input yourself. And what I mean by that is if you have data that you're collecting that is not currently a direct connection, but it's something that you want to see reflected into Orange Boy, send you the Excel file, and then load that into your Orange Boy instance so that that data is there as well. But the first column from Polaris to Cloud Library, including my PC, is essentially coming in directly, so you don't need to enter any data. Once you log into Orange Boy, you will see a screen that looks like this, and I'll actually go into the tool in just a moment. And a couple things to kind of notice while you're in this tool. The first thing is that at the top of the screen, where it says home, where my cursor is, that data is specifically all CCS. So the data that's right there, you're not able to show, or we're not able to scope it down to your individual library. So what we're starting with is all of the CCS data. And then from there, when you click on the different reports, they call them business intelligence reports. You click the card for a report, it's going to open a new screen. And then you'll be able to see either your library, a grouping of libraries, or all of CCS. So I'm going to demo how to use this tool. But before I do, I also wanted to point out that it's kind of small, but under the colorful cat up in the corner here, I don't know if my cursor is showing, I don't think it is. That colorful cat up in the corner where it says home, there's also a knowledge base. The knowledge base directly connects you to all of their documentation. It's actually really great, and it comes with a lot of videos and other resources. So that can be a really good and useful tool as well for understanding how this tool works. Go ahead and go over into Orange Boy and get that demo started. So Orange Boy is named after a cat who is orange. I believe at one point last year they were taking cat pictures to add to this, and I think last I heard they were up to about 3 hours of cats. But this is how the login screen looks when you go to it, and you'll just put in your login and your password, and then you'll click login. And I'm just using my demo account, so my account looks like your account for this one. So you can see here again, I'm up, it says Savannah, Savannah Orange Boy. There's my home, there's my knowledge base. The knowledge base, like I said, is really, really useful. You can see that you can break it down by different helpful perspectives and how to get started. So all of that information's here. They also actually do quite a few webinars. So you'll be able to see like any of their webinars will be listed here as well. But when I come into the system again, like I said, there's my home screen. We are looking at all of CCS data currently. And within the CCS data that we're looking at, it's showing you the number of active cardholders, the change in those cardholders, and the cardholders signed up last week. So again, data's in here weekly. So you'll be able to see that data pretty frequently. So I want to go ahead and look at the clusters. The reason I'm starting with clusters is because clusters is the way that Orange Boy puts the patrons together. There's a couple of things going on here that's a little bit different than what we're used to. Patrons are called customers in Orange Boy Savannah, and then they are clustered together based on some different definitions. So first, before we go into that, I'll just show you you can go by a location. So if I just wanted to look at one location, you can see your different locations are in here. So if I wanted to grab all of Algonquin, I can. My graphs change a little bit. However, one thing also to notice is that sometimes it says my library. And when it says my library, like in this instance here, this is all CCS libraries versus other Savannah libraries, which is all of the Savannah customers. They do have a little bit of an ability to narrow some things down by population and by budget category. And we have put in some requests to get a little bit more granular with this information, and they've been pretty good about updating as we go. So if you see anything in here and you're like, I wish that I could see this, you can always put in a help desk ticket with us and we'll see if we can either make that or we can get some changes made. But just in kind of to illustrate, when I open up, or I'll do that one more time. If I click the little focus mode, it makes my screen bigger. All of the graphs have this. I have the ability to change some options. And I also have the ability to see what I'm already filtering to. But when I click that to look at it bigger, you can see now these are the clusters. So they have occasionals, which are people who are occasionally using the system. They have been checking out in Polaris or Overdrive or another instance where they are using their barcode. And that is one other thing to kind of keep track of too, is that the way that the data is coming in is, and they're counting a behavior is based on that barcode being used in a system. So the occasionals are sometimes using this. Digitarians are patrons who are mostly using digital resources. Bedtime stories are adults who are checking out kids' books, so probably grown-ups with kids at home. Unknown just means that we cannot determine behavior quite yet. There's not been much patterns, so it's hard to tell. Page turners are heavy book readers. And sorry, rising stars are kiddos. New card holders are brand new card holders. Bright futures are also children. There's transitionals, so they're kind of going between different categories. There's dependables. So they are the ones that are known to show up for things and to be at the library. Double features are the people who are checking out a lot of movies. Audiophiles are checking a lot of audio items out. Excuse me. So you can see that this data is here to show you the percentage of how your patrons are categorized by the different clusters. Again, it's based on behaviors within the data that we have. And one thing to consider too is if you want to be able to see some of this data based on an age range, which there are a few, you do need to make sure that your patron's full birthday or at least birth year is in there correctly for the patron to be reflected either the child or in some cases throughout the data you'll see based on like age groups. So like 1 to 18, 18 to 30, etc. So you will need to have those birthdays accurate in the database. Okay, so you can see here, there's different information. We've added a few cards, actually. We've got the Wi-Fi information, PCU, skate counts, past IPLAR data here. We're starting to get some database information with Easy Proxy and Open Athens. We've also had them do some updates on the patron map. So when you log into this patron map, what you're going to see is a map of our service area. And the first thing that you'll be able to look at is card holders within a service area. And again, you can break this down by activity, location, customer type as your patron type. So you can get it as granular down to maybe I just want to look at my teachers. So I'll use ALK educational and stat codes. But this inside and outside is what we were able to get them to add. It seemed to be a lot more helpful. So outside of CCS service area, be a similar situation where you see maybe you've got some snowbirds or people who still somehow have active accounts, but they're in another state. And then inactive card holders are going to show you again those card holders that are not using their library resources. And so I can hover over there. If I select a cluster, if I zoom in, I'll get more details. But these are just great, kind of visual tools to help you understand the data. So one thing you might notice is that the very first tool I showed you with web reports is pulling just about everything. So anything that you want to get out of Polaris, if we have data for it, you can pull it. Simply Reports is pulling a lot of data from Polaris, but only from Polaris again. This tool is pulling from many different resources, but what you might notice is it does have a very big emphasis on patrons and their activity and how they're using your resources. So again, you're going to get your patrons in the different clusters. You'll see them by different age groups, but what you won't be able to see is you will not see individual patron names. You will not see individual titles. So that's something to consider when the way that the data is put together within Simply Reports. So again, like the customer activity over time is patrons activity over time. And you can look at circulation, you can look at digital. So that would be Overdrive and Hoopla and Canopy. But again, it's got a bigger emphasis on patron behaviors and patron engagement. So I'm going to go back, but I'm going to ask really quick if there's any questions before I move on to my next tool. Our last tool is going to be the Polaris Client Reports and Notices. So this is only accessible through the client. So you do have to have a client login or a terminal server login that you can then use to get onto the terminal server, and then you can log into the client. It is listed under utilities. Everyone should have access to this if you have access to the client. What's really great about this is these are their standard reports. These are provided from Polaris. They're customizable reports to help track virtually all aspect of library activity through Polaris. The default output can be a PDF file. You can choose HTML, Excel, a CSV. Depending on the data in the reports, like your additional formats such as Excel and HTML might produce a little bit of a different output. But overall, I find that the reports come out pretty clean, and then you can print them or email a report once it opens on your screen. And so to access these reports, you're going to go into Polaris and click Utilities, and then you'll click Reports and Notices on the shortcut bar, and then you're going to select a subsystem folder. So a report may be located in a subsystem's main folder or a subfolder. Notices may be located within a system's main folder. So we'll look at these and you can get a sense of how they're categorized and how you can access them. Using the client's reports and notices, once you are in the reports and notices, it opens a screen that looks like this, that has the blue Polaris reports at the top. You can see that there's multiple folders. You can get information about all the different parts of Polaris, acquisitions through cataloging, circulation, all the way down into the system level. And you can start with one of these reports and kind of play with it and see what you get. So for just an example of a report, I'm not going to open my client quite yet because it can be a little slow. But you can see I'll go into reports and notices, and I decided one of the reports that we hear people use a lot is a circulation report that is called Top Circing Titles by Collection. That is towards the bottom of the screen. I think it's the third one from the bottom on the left-hand side of the screen. And then this new box will open where it says Report Wizard. You can pick your library, or you can pick all of CCS libraries. You can pick a collection. You can pick multiple collections, but the report runs one by one. So that's something to consider. So I do find it's easier if I just choose one collection. And then you can put in a date range. So you'll be able to, for this one, I wanted to get a top 10 circs of all of the fiction items at my library in May. So I set my parameters at the beginning and end date. I can choose a different number of titles if I wanted to, and I chose fiction. And then I would click submit. And then it does take a few minutes to run. I think this report probably took about 3 or 4 minutes. And once the report runs, what you will get is a PDF output that will give you the information that you're looking for. So like I said, this took about 3 or 4 minutes to run. And then it opens up in this format. If it's a bigger report, it will take longer. And sometimes they can take a very long time. So I do recommend if you're using a bigger report or you're testing out a bigger report, so maybe wait till the end of the day or start at the beginning of the day when there's less traffic on the database. But you can see it pulled up my checkouts, my title, and my collection so that I get a sense of these top circling items from that month. I do want to go back to that screen right before for just a moment. So what I did point out is that you can make changes for any of these reports that you pick. When the report wizard opens, it's always going to give you the option for some parameters. So it is, you can kind of customize this down to whatever is the most useful for you. But again, just like I said, the bigger the report, the slower it will be. And it does require that client login and password in order to be able to access it. So we are right at the time for questions. And I want to say thank you so much for attending.